Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we just spent the last 30 minutes looking at comments on our last video. Have a lot of people panicking about players. I figured we'd grab the most common names that people are worried about here, go through and talk about realistic expectations with them going forward. Not gonna lie to you, it's pretty ugly with a few of these names, but honestly, I'm not worried about a lot of these studs. But before we get into anything, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in the comment section. And in that comment section, you can find a link to Underdog Fantasy where you can check out this free bet for tonight of Alvin Kamara, more than less than half a total yard. Of course, if you sign up for Underdog before this Friday, you already had the Patrick Mahomes free line on Sunday. So I'm sorry, you are no longer going to be able to get the Kamara one. You can't get 2 free bets in a week. But if you signed up to Underdog this weekend or on Monday morning, then you should be able to get to the Alvin Kamara free line only if you use promo code FLOCK. And of course, when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they'll also match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $200. Available in damn near every state. But I think that should be it. Let's bring up Jameson Williams first. Super brief here. We talked about Jameson Williams in both videos this week already, so I'm not going to waste your time too much. Yes, Jameson Williams played 8 snaps. Yes, Jameson Williams is not a wide receiver you can plan on starting anytime soon. You kind of knew that this past week. You shouldn't have started him this past week. Still a player that's worth the roster spot. You just have to be realistic with your expectations going forward. You're never guaranteed that Jameson will be someone that you can consistently put in your starting lineup, but he definitely does have the upside for it. Now, going over to our next guy, Deshaun Watson. We talked about him a little bit in our top 10 lessons learned video. With Deshaun Watson, I don't see why we would have ever started him this week. Now, keep in mind, I did tell people to play Deshaun Watson over guys like Geno Smith, Trevor Lawrence, and that was horrendous. That was very, very bad, and I'm sorry for it. With Deshaun Watson, he had 22 pass attempts, 12 completions, 131 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, an interception. He had flashes where he looked reasonable, but keep in mind, it was a small flash, a few small flashes. I mean, on the whole, Deshaun Watson had a very bad game, but if we are going to be fair here, Deshaun Watson, his first game back to the NFL in 2 years, with Deshaun Watson going up against his former team with the Houston Texans. I feel like there was so much to knock off. You had to knock off all the rust. You needed to go through, knock off all the nerves. Going forward with Deshaun Watson, maybe it's going to be a little bit of an easier spot. I mean, I think that we would assume that Deshaun Watson only gets better. I'd be very surprised if the Browns just made the worst trade of all time next to the Russell Wilson move here. This week, you have the Browns playing the Cincinnati Bengals. Then after that, you have them playing the Ravens, the Saints, the Commanders, the Steelers. Not the best matchups in the world. I mean, a ton of division games here that are going to be very important. I think Deshaun Watson is going to fall into a similar line to Jameson Williams, and that this is a player that still does have a ton of upside for rest of season. Please do not drop him just yet. It was his first game in 2 years, but you definitely cannot start him until we see otherwise. Cannot put him in your starting lineup until he proves it to us, but please keep him on your roster. Now, going over to a running back that I embarrassed myself by telling people to start. Jeff Wilson Jr. wasn't a bad matchup, but we said, okay, well, he's still the starting running back for the Miami Dolphins. Even if the Dolphins have a few banged up offensive linemen, it'll still probably be a pretty good offense. Maybe you need to start Jeff Wilson Jr. as that low-end RB2. But yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr. no longer the starting running back in Miami. Now you have Raheem Mostert coming in, playing 28 snaps compared to Jeff Wilson Jr. at 17. This now makes it where you can't start Jeff Wilson Jr. I don't know if we could start Raheem Mostert. Like, realistically speaking, how the hell am I supposed to rank these guys? I have no idea what the workload's going to be going forward. I think both of them are deserving of roster spots. Both of them should be on the bench because, hell, if you can become the starting running back for the Miami Dolphins and get 70% of the snaps in this backfield, just given how good this offense can be, I think that is a valuable role. Quick side note, though, I mean, please, next time I tell you to start a running back against the 49ers, laugh at me, tell me I'm an idiot, never listen to me again if I tell you to do that. Let's pull up who the 49ers are playing going forward. So this next week, the 49ers are playing the Buccaneers. Sit Rachaad White, sit Leonard Fournette. Then they play the Seattle Seahawks. Hopefully we get Kenneth Walker back in. We'll play Kenneth Walker. Then Washington. Can't play anybody in Washington there. Then Josh Jacobs in the Fantasy Football Championship week. Oh, dear God. Oh, dear God. All our Josh Jacobs teams. Now, going over to our next guy, we are going to have a couple tight ends here. I want to look at Mark Andrews. With Andrews, we have had some pain as of late. With Andrews this week, it wasn't that bad. He had 7 targets, 4 receptions, 53 receiving yards. But if we're looking at a few different things, A, how bad this Baltimore Ravens offense has been, and B, the fact that you haven't had Mark Andrews in a range where you could be excited about him in quite some time. Like, let's first look at how bad the Baltimore Ravens offense has been. Still a good football team. They still managed to win games, but Baltimore this past week, 10 points. Baltimore the week prior, 27. The week before that, 13. 27, 27, 23, 20, 19, 20. The last time we had Baltimore scoring more than 30 points, or at least 30 points, was week 3. Baltimore really has not been pushing the ball down the field effectively. I mean, now that you have Lamar Jackson going down, sounds like Lamar is going to miss a decent amount of time here. I think that we can assume that this offense is not scoring 30 points anytime soon. If we go ahead and look at Mark Andrews, he's had target volume, but the touchdowns haven't been there. This past week, 9 points from Mark Andrews. The week prior, 9 points. The week before that, 12. The week before that, 6. The week before that, 0. The last time you had a very strong performance from Mark Andrews was October 16th. I'm saying this as someone who drafted Mark Andrews and has Mark Andrews in a ton of leagues. Like, I wanted that elite level tight end this year. I don't know if we can realistically assume that we're going to get that with Andrews. I think that, obviously he's still a tight end 1. Obviously, you're still starting him every week just because how ugly the position is elsewhere. But to put him anywhere close to the top tier with Kelsey is just laughable. Going and looking at Kittle as well. Kittle's another one of these guys that, was supposed to give you a very high ceiling. With George Kittle, he also has this quarterback going down with Jimmy Garoppolo done for the year. Not too worried about the 49ers with no Jimmy G. You know what I actually kind of want to do? Let me pull up the implied team totals. Very interesting here. Depending on the sports book, I guess because we're recording this on Sunday, there's actually a wide range. I'm looking at 2 very famous sports books that have the 49ers as 3-point favorites over Tampa. One very famous sports book that has them as 6.5-point favorites. I've never seen a spread that big. Terms of 6.5 versus 3. Yeah, so, Vegas is telling us as well that this offense is going to be that much worse with going over from Jimmy G to Purdy. But with Kittle, there are just so many different names commanding targets. You had 40 passing attempts in this offense this week. You had 40 passing attempts. George Kittle played 81 out of 84 snaps. So Kittle played every down. You had 40 passing attempts. So what? We're assuming Kittle had 20% of the attempts. We're assuming that Kittle had 8 targets. Well, George Kittle had 3. George Kittle had 3 targets, 2 receptions, 22 receiving yards. If we're looking at George Kittle as well, just what we've had in the recent past, obviously we had the massive blow-up game against the Arizona Cardinals in Mexico. Weird game that was played in Mexico. And on top of it, he only had 6 targets. It's not like he had a ton of target volume. He's mainly just got volume. Like if we're looking at this, since Halloween, you've had 5 targets, 2 targets, 6 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets. It is so weird that in the NFL, not only did all the mid tight ends flame out, not only did all the guys like Irv Smith Jr., Cole Kmet, Dawson Knox, not only did all those guys fail this year, but these elite guys like Andrews and Kittle aren't scoring the way they did before. Is this just the change in how defensive coordinators are attacking NFL offenses this season? Is that what it is? Because legitimately speaking, the only viable option at tight end at this point seems like Kelsey. Like Kittle and Andrews following the same path that Darren Waller and Kyle Pitts. I don't know what to say. I don't know how we change our game plan going forward. I don't know what we can do this season. Weirdest thing ever. And going over and looking at what we have with Michael Pittman and the Indianapolis Colts, I think that we honestly maybe just need to throw this game into a bucket, very similar to what we are looking at with that 49ers defense. I think if we're looking at NFL defenses right now, you have the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers, tier 1, not even close with anybody else. I think it's just to the point where you try to avoid every single person playing the Dallas Cowboys, playing the 49ers. Clearly, Matt Ryan looked horrendous. Dallas had, I believe, 5 turnovers in this game. Dallas had 5 turnovers. Matt Ryan accounted for 4 of them. Michael Pittman Jr., had less points than Alec Pierce, than Paris Campbell. Michael Pittman Jr. only had 4 targets in this game as well, with the total of 37 pass attempts from Matt Ryan. I honestly think he's still a low-end wide receiver too, but you just got to be realistic, and I think we need to chalk this up saying, please, for the love of God, do not, and I repeat, do not play anybody against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, going to the main person everybody's going to be asking about, let's look at Travis Etienne. With Travis Etienne, I understand why you'd be a little bit worried here. With Etienne, we haven't had, that elite level week in quite some time. If you're looking at Travis Etienne, 2 weeks ago, you had the foot injury. So 2 weeks ago, you had Travis Etienne with only 2 attempts. Then he leaves the game early, so everybody's pissed at him to begin with. The week prior to that, you only had Etienne with 11 rushes. They play the Kansas City Chiefs. They get boat raced. He only has 3 receptions for 28 receiving yards out of the backfield. But if we take a step back, if we are realistic with ourselves with Travis Etienne, outside of the contest where the Jacksonville Jaguars just get smoked like they did against the Detroit Lions this week, or besides the contest where he leaves at the beginning of the game, there's nothing to be concerned about here with Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is still a running back 1 rest of season. I have no concerns whatsoever. The man played pretty much every single snap this past week. The only concern's the offense. If you're going to be looking at Etienne with him playing every snap, him having his 13 rush attempts, 54 rushing yards, 3 receptions, 12 receiving yards, if you're that worried about Travis Etienne, are you that worried about Derrick Henry? Hell, the Tennessee Titans offense got smoked. The Tennessee Titans looked horrendous. Derrick Henry had 11 rush attempts, 30 rushing yards, and barely anything as a pass catcher. Is the difference between these 2 running backs? Obviously, Derrick Henry's viewed in an entirely different tier, and he is, but I'm saying nobody's going to be worried about him right now, where you have the 2 down weeks for Travis Etienne because his offense gets smoked and he leaves a week early with an injury. He's operating as the 3 down workhorse. Now, please don't be worried about Travis Etienne. Of course, you're not worried about Derrick Henry. Nobody's worried about Derrick Henry. I'm just bringing him up as a comparison, saying these stud players that play in offenses that fall apart are going to have down games. He played every snap. What do you want from the man? Now, I think that's all we got for this video. Of course, if you enjoyed it, please go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in the comment section. I'll try to get to as many of those as I can. And of course, if you want to check out any of these player props for tonight, you want to go get that Alvin Kamara free bet, find the link to Underdog in the live chat, in the description, in the comment section. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I really hope you have a great day and really hope we get to see you in the live stream tonight.